Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. The backup barrage of quarterbacks continues. Look out, Dak Prescott. You're next.
Hi, this is Arif Hasan with Pro Football Network, and I have been hideously and falsely accused of using performance-depressing substances on this podcast. More later.
I'm Luke Braun of the Locked On Vikings podcast, and I think I am about to be hideously accused of something by Ron Johnson.
That's definitely happening. Luke Inman on the injury report today. So that's the group. It's the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Welcome in. It's another episode of the Minnesota Football Party. Endless Vikings talk for the next hour. I'm Sam Ekstrom of the Ron Johnson Show and Locked On Sports Minnesota. Follow me on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom. Arif Hasan writes for Pro Football Network. He's at Arif Hasan NFL. And Luke Braun hosts Locked On Vikings and the Locked On Vikings postcast. He's at Luke Braun NFL. Today, we get into the Keenum Diggs connection reborn in Buffalo. Will that be who the Vikings face on Sunday? We'll revisit the last time the Vikings played the Buffalo Bills. And Ron Johnson will join to rip Luke Braun. I'm just going to put that out there, and I can't wait for it to happen. But before we get into the myriad talkers today, a reminder that you can follow along with us on Amazon Fire and Roku. Download those apps. Get us on the big screen. It's a seamless viewing experience. Download those on your TV and then download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app. And you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It is free and available. It's audio and or video. You can literally put the video on and pause the video and fire up the audio and sync it. And you can watch it that way. Don't know why you would, but you could do that in theory. Arif and Luke, a lot to get into today. Let's start with the talker, the number one topic of the week. Case Keenum, potentially the quarterback on Sunday for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has not practiced yet this week. We'll see about Thursday. We'll see about Friday. But he has an elbow sprain that could hold him out. And the Vikings could face a fourth backup quarterback this year and a third former Vikings backup quarterback.
They're just going to keep doing it.
Keenum. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're not even counting Aaron Rodgers in that list of backup quarterbacks. So it's really it's an even easier schedule than you.
He's coming in hot. Let's go to Arif Hasan. Your thoughts if the Vikings play Case Keenum, what is the drop-off from Josh Allen?
It is substantial. So when the sportsbooks had no idea who was going to play, if there was some, chance that Josh Allen was going to play, this had already initially been reported that he had some sort of elbow thing, before we had a timeline on it. The Bills were favored at about 7 points. Now, first of all, the sportsbooks are all over the place, but the Bills, when it became a little bit more certain, it dropped to 3 points favor Bills. And now I think, I haven't checked it recently, we can check over at Sportsbook, but now I think the Vikings are favored, right? Not a ton of, the quarterback is the most important position, right? But not a ton of quarterbacks from their starter to their backup drop by multiple possessions. This is extraordinary. We've seen Case Keenum play a lot. Obviously, we've seen him play in a Vikings uniform, but after that, he earned a starting job, maybe deservedly so, right? With the Denver Broncos, and that just did not work out for him. He wasn't playing very well after the Denver Broncos. He had a stint in Washington. That did not turn out very well, and then he's just been kind of bouncing around. We saw a pair of starts in Cleveland. We saw actually more than a pair of starts in Cleveland, and when we saw just a tiny bit of play in the preseason from him in Buffalo, and he's not a very good quarterback. I mean, I hate saying it because I love him, right? He's a fantastic person. He was really fun to cover, and he really helped enable one of the best seasons the Vikings have had. But he's not playing well, and Josh Allen is an MVP caliber player, and he's been playing at an MVP level. So it's substantial. But I do want to point out, the Bills also, when you take out the quarterback, the Bills have like the third or fourth best roster in the NFL up and down, right? And that can't be ignored. So there's a lot of elements at play here, but, and Case Keenum might be better than some other backup quarterbacks, but this is a radically different team with him in it.
Yeah, interesting to note, Luke Braun, that BetOnline put together the most valuable players in football before the season based on their impact on the spread. Josh Allen, not Patrick Mahomes, was number 1 on that list, worth 8 points just by existing, just by being in the game, worth 8 points. And that's coming to fruition. Now, they're not going to go all the way down 8 points, but they've gone like halfway, a little more than halfway with the uncertainty that he might not play. And a couple notes on Keenum. Outside of his year as the Vikings starter, 18-32 in 50 starts in the NFL. Touchdown to interception ratio outside of that year, 56-41. So that would be evidence, to Arif's point, maybe an outlier season for Case Keenum in Minnesota.
Perhaps that was something a little unsustainable over there, you think?
Yeah, if only people covering Minnesota at the time had pointed this out.
If only.
If only the Minnesota Vikings, who did not re-sign Case Keenum, knew. They were 13-3 and didn't re-sign their quarterback. Maybe this was obvious.
The horseshoe over his head played a role.
Currently, Bills favored by 3.5. I believe at BetOnline they started at 7.5. So about half of that 8 points has moved, which is the market reacting to we don't know who is going to be the quarterback. But yeah, one player representing an entire touchdown in a betting market, that's enormous. But like Arif said, that roster is good. And what I'm hearing on Vikings media and like on social media and stuff is, this idea, or like rebuking this idea that, hey, if Case Keenum plays, all right, cool, backup quarterback, auto win. And no, that's not the way that works. Case Keenum is a good backup quarterback. I don't think he belongs as a starter, but he's a good backup. And the definition of a good backup is somebody that can come in when your quarterback tweaks his elbow, needs to miss a couple weeks, limp you through those couple weeks, and maybe even steal one of the games, right? So by that definition, Case Keenum can steal a game. We have certainly had tougher battles in the last month with lesser teams than a Case Keenum-led Bills. So if Josh Allen plays, this is a really, really hard game. If he doesn't, it's still a very hard game. They've got a lot of good players. And while Case Keenum, he just doesn't nearly have the talent, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you just kind of don't have to defend with Keenum that you do versus Allen. He's a quarterback. He's not a potato. This is what I always say about backup quarterbacks. People treat them like they're potatoes and like it's an auto win, like it's over. No, the line moved by 4 points. He's a quarterback, not a potato. All right. I needed to tell Mike Zimmer this because he treated Cooper Rush like a potato and lost.
Okay, actually, so I was going to bring up Cooper Rush because I have a question for you, Luke, and Sam. Of course, feel free to chime in. Rank the backup quarterbacks, right? Okay, so you've got Case Keenum, you've got Teddy Bridgewater, you've got Andy Dalton, you've got Skylar Thompson, and just because Cooper Rush has played a lot this year, let's put Cooper Rush in there too. So rank those backup quarterbacks. And Taylor Heineke. Put that in there too.
Can I put Carson Wentz in there just so I can say Heineke's above him?
It's really hard to rank
potato.
Keenum just because we haven't experienced Keenum yet this year, but I would say that Dalton's like track record and overall professionalism would put him
Dalton's number
1.
1? Okay, so Dalton.
Yeah. I'm putting Skylar Thompson 1. That dude was balling.
You're putting Skylar Thompson 1?
He was balling in that game. I think if he plays that game, he crushes us.
8
Yep,
plays.
I'm overreacting to a tiny sample. Deal with it.
So
I'm aware of it. Again, I'm doing it. What are you going to do? Arrest me?
Oh, there's a lot of ways to get you arrested, Luke. Okay, just believe you me.
That's true. You are uniquely equipped to get me into legal trouble.
Get the Luke Braun mask
Skylar Thompson,
out.
Dalton,
Impersonation.
Keenum, Teddy, and who else did you say? Heineke's
Cooper
last.
Rush.
Stinks.
And Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush.
See,
All right,
all of them played badly against, like, who among them actually played a good game against the Vikings? None, not even Cooper
Dalton.
Rush. Like, none of them did. They were all horrible. And
Cooper Rush did all right.
you did no, he didn't. He didn't do all right.
Cooper Rush did
How many
better.
points did they score? How many drives did they not score any points? It was not a good
Look at the
game.
Cooper Rush game. Let's take a
He
look
turned
at
it
the Cooper
over
Rush game.
twice. Give me the line. Oh, I'm sure that the yards ended up being
Didn't
fine.
Amari Cooper have like a 100-yard game?
Yeah, I was
We
just thinking
kept,
that was like the Amari
going up-
Cooper game.
Okay.
Yeah, we kept going like
Look up
one-on-one
his
with the
stats.
scared Cameron Dantzler.
Okay, so 20 for 40, 60% completions, 325 yards, 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Passer rating of 92.2, only took 3 sacks, so a yards per attempt of 8.13 and an adjusted yards per attempt of 8.0. Sam, are you thinking of someone else?
Okay.
You played all right.
Look at the final drive or two. Like I guarantee you that performance
so now
would
we're
not have
talking
been
about sample
perceived in
sizes again.
any way positively unless he delivers on the final touchdown drive.
He did. It was a 5-yard pass to Amari Cooper
Which-
for the game-winning touchdown
yeah,
with
which he
51
did.
seconds left. Yeah.
You've convinced
Again,
me
you're
that
thinking
I'm
of a
wrong.
different game. Yeah.
I'm gonna put Cooper
No,
Rush number one.
I know he won the game.
Also 'cause he's
but
like
he
5
did
and
not
0.
play well.
Yeah.
He did not play well. The Vikings played worse.
So I'm
I'm
gonna put Cooper
I watched
Rush
every
number
play
one.
of that
and then
game.
Skylar Thompson.
Cowboys had no
Yeah, but
business being in.
you might be right, but every argument you bring forth just makes you look worse. It's as if you're remembering a different game.
What was his QBR? I don't go by passer rating. No. We're literally not moving off of this point until we get support
week
for my
week
argument.
8, 2021. Let's see. Rush. QBR 48. See, that's average. It's league average.
League average. Yeah,
Yeah,
come and
if
have a
Cousins
league
had a
average game. That's
48,
great
we'd rip him.
backup. Why is that?
Are we going to see Rush? We're definitely seeing Rush again next week because Prescott's going down. The Vikings are the Madden curse.
the
God will
wizardry
find a
behind the
way.
Vikings is
Kiss
I don't know if that's the particular deity responsible in this particular instance, but that's for the Norse Code podcast.
If
I,
anything, an opposition force.
It's unfortunate that Joe Buck works for ESPN now because he can't do the Vikings-Bills game. It's actually Joe Davis. But if Buck were doing it, we'd have the possibility to hear Keenum steps into one, pass is caught, Diggs, sideline touchdown, unbelievable, touchdown. Bills win it. In that scenario, which Viking defensive back whiffs like Marcus Williams?
Harrison Smith.
Yep.
It has to the most embarrassing possible. Yeah, exactly. It's like how Harrison Smith got embarrassed against the Eagles in 2017, right? It's just like, oh, that's the game we're gonna have, right? Like if it was Andrew Sandeo against the Eagles, you'd just be like, yeah, okay, that you figured it out.
But you found Sandeo.
See, I think the answer would have been Dantzler. Like that is absolutely something Dantzler would do, but he won't be playing.
And that would track with his record of play this season thus far, right?
Yeah, it would make too much sense to be the case.
It's got if he's going to repeat the call, it has to hurt.
I hope Joe Davis does channel that, but if I'm
watch
actually
him say something
bullish.
Entirely different, just be like, "See you tomorrow night."
Hey, he is a baseball announcer. I actually like a Caleb Evans in this spot because I think people might be overhyping Dantzler's impact a little bit. He has not shut down top-tier receivers at all. And I like Evans' physicality. I think that it's right on par with Dantzler. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that Evans is going to perform worse than Dantzler has against some elite wideouts. And maybe he can even exceed, Dantzler's standard a little bit. What do you guys think about that?
The issue with evaluating Dantzler is that if you took, say, everybody's best 200 snaps this year or whatever, right? Dantzler would be near the top of the list in terms of how good those snaps are, right? If you compared everyone's best 200 snaps to each other, Dantzler would be like the 4th or 5th best player on the roster. Then you do the bottom 200 snaps, and he is, I wouldn't say the worst player on the roster or the bottom 5, but it would be alarming, right? Compared to, so like it's really volatile, but not in the way that cornerbacks typically are, not in like the Marcus Peters, Stefon Diggs kind of, I'm gambling, Xavier Howard, I'm gambling a lot and I'm just giving up yards and I'm giving up touchdowns, but I got a couple of picks. It's just like mistakes. It's like really great plays or incredible mistakes, right? He's forcing a fumble here. He's got a pass deflection that leads to an interception there, and he gives up a 50-yard touchdown because he just passed it off to Cameron Bynum, who wasn't expecting it because it was cover 4. Why would he be expecting it? That kind of thing. So, it is alarming. I would say that it seems like, based off of what I've seen over the past couple of weeks, it seems like Dantzler has cut down on those mistakes really significantly without seeing a substantial drop-off in the rate of really excellent plays from him. So it does seem like he's improving in that regard, although I think he did make a fairly big mistake 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to recall. But it does seem like the rate of those mistakes is dropping. So I am a little bit more enthused about his ability to take on top receivers. I just would still rather have Patrick Peterson there on top of Stefon Diggs. Maybe have Cam Dantzler and Gabe Davis duke it out, even though that's like a size mismatch. I mean, everything's a size mismatch. Just Dantzler.
But aren't they going to avoid Peterson's side? I mean, Peterson doesn't move around. He's not a shadower.
Yeah, that's why I said I'd rather. It's not like they should put Peterson on. I just would rather that scenario. Luke, what do you think?
Caleb Evans, Braun, your thoughts?
So Dantzler's, I guess, second biggest issue, because the like coverage busting is the biggest issue. But yeah, that has dried up. I think 2 weeks ago, his problem was that he had DeAndre Hopkins a lot. Just like,
oh yeah, that was it. That's it was like, oh yeah, well, hey, but in the second half, not a problem.
For me, Caleb Evans the second biggest problem with Cameron Dantzler is that he plays too far off really often. I think he's playing with more confidence than he did last year, but still not enough. And so he plays things really soft. That's what happened against DeAndre Hopkins a lot, and Hopkins is really good at like punishing that. I think Evans has that problem, but worse based on like preseason. So that would be what I think the drop off is. If you're frustrated about how off Cameron Dantzler plays, that would get worse if Dantzler can't go and you had to do Evans instead. However, didn't see a lot of that against Washington, so maybe he's doing a little better there. Small sample, and I'm only allowed to overreact to one a week. So I don't know. I probably wouldn't say that, like, expect it to get like better. But there was enough in that Washington game to at least have a little hope, sure. But if I'm the Vikings, I'm probably finding a way to get safety capping over Diggs at all times. Not unlike the way that people have been defending Jefferson.
Stefon Diggs terrifies me in a revenge game. He's never been in this position before. Terrifies me. There's nobody that I've covered more competitive than Stefon Diggs. Nobody who burns hotter. Eric Kendrick said he's a super competitor. And I think Diggs, regardless that the people he had a problem with are gone, he is going to show up. And he is going to be out of his mind competitive in this game. So I'm worried about it. I think he's sitting on a massive performance if Keenum can get in the ball correctly, which might be a question mark. By the way, they probably haven't thrown many passes to each other since the NFC Championship game, like 5 years ago, which is kind of wild. But let's revisit Diggs Jefferson and talk about the talker we've talked about so many times before. Is there any scenario where you undo that deal? If you had the opportunity, you could reverse time, keep Diggs, and let someone else have that draft pick. Is there a world where that scenario would be preferable?
Isn't it like the only trade where nobody says yes to that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that one's really tough. I'm trying to, like, what do you mean by, like, the only world, right? Because a world where Jefferson, like, he gets injured and is out for the rest of his career. So obviously that world you'd rather have Stefon Diggs.
I'm saying, I might have phrased that clunkily. I'm saying if you could reverse time, you have the control. And you get to keep Diggs, and you know what Diggs is going to do. Like, he's going to continue playing at a high level. You know that Jefferson's going to play at a high level for whoever drafts him, but you keep Diggs. You don't get Jefferson. Do you ever make that move in retrospect?
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a justification, right? That would make like a way to work yourself back. But in terms of the long view, having Jefferson around, he's younger and he's playing at the same level, right? That's preferable. You've got the cap savings at the beginning, that's preferable, especially because for the Bills it worked out because at the time Josh Allen was on a rookie deal, right? For the Vikings it worked out because Kirk Cousins famously was not, right? And so that's an important element of it. There's also, the fact that I think from a locker room perspective, it was better to have Jefferson in there than Stefon Diggs. If you keep Stefon Diggs, I mean, what Stefon Diggs are you getting? I mean, you're getting a super competitor, but like, what is he competing for? Right at that point, what is he attempting to prove? It is difficult to figure out kind of a line of argumentation that it makes sense to keep Diggs, especially unless you're like, man, those first two games for, in Jefferson's rookie year, they were really crucial to the Vikings' success overall. And Diggs would have been ready for the first two games and Jefferson wasn't. That's it. That's all you got, right? After that, it's just like, yeah, man, I don't know. Jefferson's got more yards per game. He's getting open a little bit more. I think like by almost every metric, I mean, ESPN's like wide receiver ranking thing, which is really cool, I think has Diggs a little bit ahead of Jefferson, but they're both top five. So at least for a multi-year span. So it is tough to envision a scenario where stopping that trade makes sense for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Braun?
The money thing was like the reason to do it, right? Where you had this dream scenario where you trade away Stefon Diggs, replace him 1-for-1 with that first round pick, and then save money, right? Like that's the justification on the Vikings side. But also, he's never signing an extension here. Like Jefferson, you can reasonably assume will be interested in signing a big money extension probably next offseason. Diggs is never signing that, so you don't have nearly as much longevity there. As soon as his contract is up, you probably are losing him to the free agent market anyways. So I think everything just could not have worked. Yeah, I can't really think of a reason that going back and undo would be a good thing for the Vikings and for Diggs. I think he needed that fresh start. He talks about how his mental health like wasn't right when he was here, and that fresh start really helped him. Good for the Bills, fantastic for Josh Allen, and it worked out great for us. Yeah, this is like one of the only trades where nobody involved in it will end up with regrets. Let's go back and undo like the Chris Herndon trade or something.
You're both right. You don't undo
I just thought of a scenario where it kind of makes sense, which is because the Vikings had 2 first round picks that year, right? The other one was on Jeff Gladney.
Yeah.
But only because of the trade.
No, I know. What I'm saying is
okay.
You don't draft Jeff Gladney, which I feel bad. I mean, he's passed away, so I don't really want to dig on him too much. But the scenario where you pass on Jeff Gladney and draft Justin Jefferson along with Stefon Diggs, that's a scenario that actually might have worked out for the Vikings a lot. So that's the one area where you say
probably
maybe
got to trade up.
Yeah, you got to trade up. Who
Actually,
cares?
if you don't, you got to trade up because otherwise, Justin Jefferson's a Packer. If we at 22 or whatever it was, because they were going to trade up like one spot below us. So
there's another element to this whole discussion. Like, where does he go? He goes to the Packers. If you don't you immediately make that trade, knowing that.
Yeah.
If there's anything at all that I think Diggs is better than Jefferson at, it's like tracking a deep ball. But if you look at their deep ball production, Jefferson's better. Like Jefferson was number 2 in deep receptions his first 2 years. I think Diggs has him by 1 at the moment, like 9 to 8. But and it's because there's the rare 50-yard bomb where I actually prefer Diggs. I think Diggs is a little better acceleration downfield. I think he tracks the ball better. But Jefferson makes so many 25-yard catches, which is considered deep, that he just uses his body, he uses his hands, his footwork at the end of the play to make those plays. And that's more like functionally productive over the course of a season than the very rare throw it as far as you can ball that Josh Allen does sometimes. But the attitude, the production, the cost, it's all in favor of Jefferson here.
When you compare their skill sets, something very weird happens where the reputations that these players have run opposite to where their skills lie in relation to each other, right? Except for maybe contested catches where Diggs is better, and I guess Jefferson doesn't really have that reputation, although he did in college. But Diggs, I would say, is better at contested catches. I think he's better at those deep bombs in terms of tracking the ball, which is, of course, not to say that Jefferson's bad at it. Diggs is just phenomenal at it. But you take a look at yards after the catch. I don't know whose numbers are better, but I think Jefferson's a better yards after the catch receiver, despite Diggs's reputation, right? And also in terms of just getting open, Diggs has the best route running highlights, this side of Hunter Renfrow, right? He is a phenomenal route runner, and it looks like he's a phenomenal route runner. Jefferson is a much smoother route runner, and I think he does a better job getting open, which is a really weird thing when you're talking about Stefon Diggs. Not many guys can say they do a better job getting open than him, but I think Jefferson does do a better job getting open. It just doesn't pop off the film in the same way because of how explosive Diggs is when he is running routes. So I'll say that Jefferson does a better job getting open. He does a better job after the catch. Despite the fact that those are the things that Diggs is most well known for. He's not as well known for the contested catch stuff, but that's one area where he's actually better than Jefferson. So it is kind of an interesting contrast.
I want to revisit the fateful 2018 game these teams played last time they met. But first, we've been talking about it all week. BetOnline.net. That's where we're tracking this very interesting Vikings-Bills line. It's down to 3.5 in favor of the Bills. Over-under has dropped about 3 points. Make sure you're tracking that every day at BetOnline.net, as well as the other lines for the NFL and college football. It's your home for football betting and basketball betting this season. College basketball is underway now. Make sure to check that out, along with MMA, boxing, and golf. It's BetOnline, available on your laptop, on your mobile device, and of course, it's where the game starts. If you go back in the annals of Vikings time, there are some pretty fun matchups with the Bills. And with a lot of these AFC teams, you remember them really well because it's once every 4 years. So you can think back to like 2000 when the Vikings had a big comeback against the Bills. Randy Moss had a big game. Culpepper had a big game. 2010, I believe that's the game that Favre got hurt and ended his starting streak. And then T-Jack came in and the Vikings still crushed him. Sammy Watkins, walk-off touchdown against the Vikings in Zimmer's first year. And then there was 2018. What do you remember most?
Snowball game.
Say again.
Chuck Foreman snowball game, 1975.
That
Last
is a
game of the regular
cut.
season in 75. He could have got the Triple Crown.
And what happened?
But
I don't know. I literally don't know.
Oh, so he went into that game in contention for the rushing title, receiving title, and touchdown title among running backs. And O.J. Simpson was in that game too, and also had eyes on some of those. But he could have had the Triple Crown, and I think if he gets a Triple Crown, he gets into the Hall of Fame. But he doesn't end up getting a Triple Crown because then this is a blowout win for the Vikings. They're up by like 30 points. Bills fans are booing. This is in Buffalo, and it's like a snowy game, and they start throwing stuff at the Vikings in the end zone. A snowball hits Chuck Foreman in the eye, and they're up by like 25 points, and they've got the playoffs coming up. So Bud Grant pulls him. He had like 4 touchdowns already in that game. He had a ton of yards, and there was like a quarter left. If he keeps that pace going, really good chance he gets that Triple Crown, but he gets pulled instead. Fast forward, this is a Chris Thomason feature from I think like a year or two ago, but like fast forward to modern day, he gets a call from somebody that like knew somebody at the Bills that was like friends with Chuck Foreman from a different time playing or something, who was a guard for the Bills in that game, who says, "Hey, I've actually got a line on Chuck Foreman." They call him up, and Chuck Foreman gets a call, and he's like, "Hey, I threw that snowball. I was a kid. I didn't know any better. My parents were just throwing stuff, so I was throwing stuff. I threw that snowball. I'm so sorry." And Chuck Foreman was like, "Oh, well, I haven't thought about that in like 30 years."
Of course his parents were throwing things. Bills Mafia, relentless, even in the 70s. That's great, though. That's a crazy story. So 2018. I feel bad about this game still because my parents went to this game, and they don't go to many football games. And this was the game they happened to go to. The opponent was ripe for like a victory, and the tickets were cheaper because Buffalo didn't travel quite as well because they were really bad, or allegedly really bad at the time. This kicked off Josh Allen's career, and this also kicked off the beginning of the end of John DeFilippo. But what do you guys remember about this game?
The Bills had the worst roster in the NFL. That's the thing, right? Like, take Josh Allen out of it, right? How many players, you take a look at that 2018 squad, how many players on offense and defense do you think would start for 20, 25 teams in the NFL? It was like Deion Dawkins, I think one other player in the offensive backfield, and 2 defenders, right? Like, that's basically what it was. It was such a bad team that, the fact that they were quarterbacked by a player who just wasn't very good, right? Josh Allen was just inaccurate. He couldn't throw a screen pass to save his life. The receivers were awful, right? That whole group was just so bad that I remember thinking, like, man, is this Bills team top to bottom worse than the Jaguars team that almost went, all defeated, right? Because that Jaguars team, to me, I think they ended up winning 2 games before they drafted Blake Bortles in the draft that year. That team to me was worse than the Browns and Lions, 0-16, 0-16 squads, right? But that Bills team was just absolutely terrible, right? And the Vikings were doing well; they were winning, right? And so they were double-digit favorites, and more than just, it wasn't like 10 points; it was like 18 points, right? Like, it was crazy,
like crazy spread.
Yeah. And like, Luke, you said, you can't treat quarterbacks like potatoes. You got to take them seriously. And even with that knowledge, I would have been like, yeah, but look who they're throwing out there, right? Like, this guy's not making a college all-star team. What are we talking about? So, famously, Josh Allen didn't make a college all-star team. Like, it was just like,
he was not good for his first 2 years. Like,
abysmal. He was the worst quarterback in the NFL his rookie year. He made a huge leap in improvement for his second year and was like ranked 26th in most major quarterback metrics. Like, that's how bad he was his rookie year. That an enormous leap meant that he was still one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
I believe that was also the year that Vontae Davis retired at halftime in the game before that one.
Yeah, that's why the Bills,
the wheels were falling off. Yeah.
And the thing is, the Vikings, if you get rid of the miscommunications, right, the Vikings win that game handily. But there were like 3 or 4 blown coverages, right? There's a miscommunication between the nickel and Eric Kendricks. There's a miscommunication, I think, the boundary corner, right? And like they were just like, this tight end whose name escapes me. I don't think he's on a roster right now, right?
Kroom?
Might have been
something.
It starts with a K,
Kroom?
right? Maybe
It wasn't Charles
it
Clay?
looks like Luke's looking. No, it was not Charles Clay.
Jason Kroom would be the name.
Yeah, Jason Kroom. Yeah,
CJ Kroom. Close
enough. That was pretty good. He breaks wide open because of this miscommunication and runs for like a 40-yard touchdown or something crazy like that. And it just kept happening. Of course, everyone remembers the hurdle over Anthony Barr, but of the 5 most impactful plays in terms of its impact on the score, that's not even up there, right? Like, just it was.
They were so shook by that
game.
hurdle that they went into the next draft and took Alexander Madison, hurdler.
Dude, that
and Anthony Barr's like, I came back for this.
Right.
And then a short week, and he goes to LA in the Sean McVay game, where he ends up having to cover Cooper Kupp, and then everybody thought he was worse than Eric Wilson for 3 years.
Yeah, and also remember, right before that game, Everson Griffin mysteriously didn't show up, right? There was like a huge thing.
Ooh, that's right.
Yeah,
there's so many angles to this game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a weird moment in Vikings history.
Dead. Like, I've been in losing locker rooms that have been silent. I've been in locker rooms that are confused about ties that are silent, right? Because like the tie is just like, well, we don't know really what to feel. but this one was like the first time I've walked into a locker room and there's like a palpable sense of shame, right? That just permeated the air. It was brutal.
Arif, was this the epic post-game presser where you led off with Cousins and just said, "What happened?"
Did you really do that?
Arif did this. And
God, I'm so good at my job, man.
Twice. Kirk the first, I think the first 2 possessions were strip sacks.
Man, we never talk about Kirk fumbling anymore. That was such a big problem. Such a big problem. And that appeared in that game. Yeah. Oh my God.
We haven't even mentioned that the Vikings ran it a total of 6 times in this game. 2 of those were Kirk scrambles. Mike Boone 2 for 11 yards led the team. Cousins threw it 55 times.
Wait, because that was DeFilippo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later in New England, ran it 9 times and basically got canned.
There you go. I'm taking a look. Oh yeah, so you had the remnants of Star Lotulelei. You had an almost retired Kyle Williams up front, and a Matt Milano at linebacker before Matt Milano had arrived as Matt Milano, right? And and I can see why you would take a look at that, and then you take a look at like a guy like Raphael Bush is playing is safety, right? Teron Johnson is playing corner.
Like
I can see why you would
most of the game too.
Yeah, and so I can see why you throw the ball a lot, but yeah, maybe run that time.
Ed Oliver, did he roast Riley Reif? Is that correct?
Jerry
No,
Hughes.
Ed Oliver.
Jerry Hughes.
Ed Oliver wasn't.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah, it was Jerry Hughes. Ed Oliver hadn't been drafted yet. Yeah, because their other edge rusher was a combination of Trent Murphy and Shaq Lawson, depending on kind of whose shoulder was working that week.
That was a fun trip down memory lane. Before we have Ron Johnson, it's time for a 4-minute drill.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
All right, 1 minute on the clock. We will each go down the line and make our case. Today's question is, the Vikings need to dominate which area if they're going to beat the Buffalo Bills on Sunday? Arif, we will start with you.
Let's go with pass protection, right? I think if the Vikings have better pass protection than the Bills do, I think that they end up winning the game. That is, the Bills have been doing a lot with the pass rush. Obviously, Von Miller's been playing a really big role. Ed Oliver has done really well for them from pass rush perspective, especially the past couple of games. Kirk Cousins has done well against pressure, but obviously his worst throws have come with pressure in his face. And if the Vikings want to outduel somebody like Case Keenum or Josh Allen, they're going to have to make sure that they create a comfortable environment for Cousins to be able to find the open receiver, go through his reads. He's doing a little bit of a better job of getting through those reads, but he still needs to be kind of comfortable. Whereas, on the other side of the ball, the Vikings do have a bit of advantage. We've seen Daniil Hunter really turned it on the past 3 weeks. We know what za'darius Smith can do. Their ability to generate pass rush pressure is pretty extraordinary. Those are the only times Josh Allen looks uncomfortable. We know what Case Keenum does under pressure in a Vikings uniform. He does amazing things in any other uniform. He throws picks, right? And so their ability to generate pressure up front, especially if they have Dalvin Tomlinson available for them, is going to help them win the game and create turnovers.
Luke?
I'm going to say both sides of the ball, the slot. If I were the Bills and I were watching the Vikings defense, we just talked a whole bunch about Dantzler or Caleb Evans and stuff, and maybe picking on the backup if he's in, like the decent move. But I'm putting Stefon Diggs in the slot and trying to get him on Chandon Sullivan all day. Or if it's zone, you're taking shots with Diggs over the middle of the field where the Vikings have had all kinds of problems in coverage. They got to shore that up. And I think if I'm the Bills, that's how I am using Stefon Diggs to attack. But if you look at the other side too, the Bills secondary, we don't know if Trey White is going to play. They also have Dane Jackson, 7th round pick that was part of the Diggs trade, who's a starter for them now. And Teron Johnson is their nickel corner, who's been playing as one of the better nickels in the league this year, at least according to Joe Marino, who does Locked on Bills. That is also going to be an interesting thing. If you wanted to, you could also say, hey, Justin Jefferson in the slot, and we're just going to try to do that. Vikings love to do that. Everybody's slot corner is susceptible to big old Justin Jefferson. But if they got a good slot corner, finding a way to get production there might also be something that the game hinges on.
All right, I'm going to get cliche as it gets. Time of possession. The Minnesota Vikings are 28th in average drive time. They are 24th in the number of plays per drive, 21st in the number of yards per drive. That has resulted in the 10th most punts in the NFL this season. The Vikings had a 7-drive stretch against Washington where they went punt, 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 interception, punt, punt. How many touchdowns will they trail Buffalo if they do the same thing on Sunday? You got to sustain drives. You got to at least pick up 2 or 3 first downs and then punt the football. But if you are going to have the ball for 19 minutes in this game, you're going to get obliterated. So if they ever had a 4-quarter offensive performance in them, it's got to come here against Buffalo. I don't care who the quarterback is, and I know that they're playing a really good defense, so it's incumbent that the Vikings have productivity on first down. Looking back to our nerdy stat of the day, in case you missed it on Monday, Vikings had 23 of 26 first downs where they produced 0.7 yards per play. The other 3, they had successful passes, but it was ugly. So that's my
Establish
key.
the run. You heard Sam Ekstrom.
Establish the run.
Just kill that
Can't
clock.
run it enough. Run. That's what I'm about. the pathetic sigh.
Is Ron Johnson
Arif.
here yet?
Is he? I hope so. I don't think he is, though. Matt does a good job of letting me know, and he has not notified me. He'll be here, though. He's not going to miss the
That's right.
The brouhaha with Braun. That's coming. I'll update the gambling. Remember, we pick games every week. 1 against the spread, 1 over/under. Started with $1,000 mythical dollars, and here's where we're at. Arif, you're the only contestant that got a win last week. You went 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
You still lost money, but your bankroll is $7.07.76. Luke Braun, you went 0-2. Your bankroll is down to $3.11. I went 0-1-1. My bankroll is down to $2.83 and change. Luke Inman went 0-2. He's down to $2.36 and change. So a nice little lead for you, Arif. Are you going to get aggressive or conservative with the advantage? Are you going to start running the football, or are you going to work it downfield and try to expand your lead?
I don't appreciate that analogy. Running the football is riskier than people think. So I am going to throw a series of short passes, and I will continue to play conservatively.
We will make those picks after our weekly visit with Ron Johnson, who joins us now. He is our
Let's
guest
see
of honor
who's
today.
lucky enough to get invited to today's party. It's time to meet our guest of honor.
He appears on the Ron Johnson Show Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays with the roundtables on Friday on Twitter @3Ron Johnson. Ron, I don't want to beat around the bush, so let's get into it. You have a bone to pick with Luke Braun. You've been talking about it all week, and now you are face to face. I'm gonna step out of the way and let you two have it out. So, Ron, what is your grievance with Luke?
No, it's not a grievance. It's just it's what a lot of people do. They get the film, and then they want to pick out like one play that they really think should have been differently in a game. And it's like the fade route to Justin Jefferson. If Justin Jefferson catches that fade route, if Benjamin St. Juste gets called for pass interference, whatever, we're not talking about that play. When you're in red zone offense, you have about 2 seconds to decide where you're going with the ball before the snap. After the snap, you have about 1 second to decide where you're going with the ball. In order to make the throw that Luke's talking about, he has to assume the 2 guys covering the inside receiver are not going to cover the inside receiver anymore. It's not going to happen ever. Like, it's not going to happen. The one he's bracketed in that system when you look at red 2 defense, and they went man outside. So for a quarterback, offensive coordinator, anybody who's ever played Pop Warner football, the throw goes to Justin Jefferson versus Benjamin St. Juste. So that's just my point when you look at Kirk Cousins, at 64.8%, and you got Josh Allen at 64%. Josh Allen, 64% completion. The big difference is he's 8.1 yards per catch, and then Kirk Cousins is about 6 yards per catch. That's the only difference. They're both 64% completions. They're both having a decent season. They're both their teams. Technically, Kirk Cousins won more games, but Josh Allen in people's minds is like, oh man, he's out here killing it with the completions, and look what he's doing here. Look at the throw he makes there. They're both 64%. So I don't know what kind of math Luke does in California, but in Minnesota, 64 is 64 every possible way. And so that's my point. Like, you can pick out Josh Allen plays, you can pick out Tom Brady plays, you can pick out whoever you. At the end of the day, everybody assumes because they're looking from a 1,000-foot camera angle, and they're like, oh, I can see all of this. When you're a quarterback, you got about this much window. You can't see every single thing. You're going off of, what is my coverage to the side I'm running the play on? Here's where I'm going with the ball. Hike, let's go. like for people to assume that he's Spider-Man or something, or he's moving faster than everybody else. So, or the Flash or something, where he hikes the ball and then everybody else goes slow and he like runs around like an X-Men movie and he can look and see, oh, this guy's not going to cover this guy. This guy pokes this guy over. This guy's not covering this guy. He's not. Oh, okay, I'm going to throw it here. And then he gets back, gets the ball, throws it to KJ Osborne.
Yeah, roasted.
And then Luke's like, he's the greatest quarterback ever.
Wait,
like no.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the red zone play where Luke said he should throw to KJ Osborne between the two defenders instead of Justin Jefferson.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
I
actually
do.
Said.
Okay. Luke's
Can I respond
to
my thing first, Arif?
No. I want to say that you're wrong. I actually agree with you. When I saw Luke tweet that out, I thought it was a pretty bad take, but I was a little bit
not my take.
Caught up in my arguments online for me to get involved in.
What is your take? Let's get your take.
No, that's absolutely. Of course, you throw the fade. I think one of the first things I said was like that's absolutely. He's throwing that 100 times out of 100. Of course he is. Especially, I think it was a single high safety, right? Single high safety. You see 1-on-1 on the outside, and you've got him running a fade.
Coverage, yeah.
My problem is calling a goal line fade on 3rd and 4 with that timing situation too, where like clock matters. That's my issue. My issue is not with Kirk Cousins on that play at all. That's one thing. Also, I post like 20 plays on Mondays.
Do you want me to quote your tweet? I have it right here. See, there's stuff like this all over the tape all year where KJ is open at the goal line, but it goes to a JJ 1-on-1 instead. And like, do we really want Kirk to start coming off of those? Genuinely conflicted. What are you conflicted about?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So do we? Of course, we have not instructed Kirk to come off of those, right?
Arif, you are the character witness in this. He literally just said, I said 100 times out of 100 times you throw the fade. No,
did you watch the video?
You didn't say that though. You should have tweeted this video and said, I'm going to teach you how to tweet. This is what
video's behind a paywall.
So
I apologize.
You have the video. You say, hey,
because that's just
this is what
right?
Kirk. You said 100 out of 100 times Kirk Cousins should throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. There's an opportunity maybe to come to KJ Osborne, but he didn't do it here. End quote. That's how you word that tweet. You worded it.
I also don't.
I accept the
Kirk
criticism.
Cousins,
poorly worded tweet.
Max Kellerman hater that worries about how many abs Kirk Cousins has. That was
the most insane take I've ever seen.
Okay,
you're basically
Max. Don't let me in with Max Kellerman. I do not
refuse to learn what that take is. I actually don't love that throw to KJ Osborne. By the way, I don't think he's all that open. And you got to throw behind him.
Can I clarify my point? Okay,
no,
sure.
You're wrong.
Poorly worded tweet. And later I'll take because I broke down that play for a Patreon Kirk Cousins breakdown, which was like 95% praise, and the other 5% was that one underthrow that everybody was arguing about. I thought Kirk had an awesome game. But that play, this is what I'm genuinely conflicted about. And it's a play calling thing, not a Kirk Cousins thing. You call that play, he's throwing that every time. There is absolutely no argument that Kirk should come off of that Justin Jefferson thing. If I accidentally implied that in a tweet, I'm sorry. I don't think that. Also,
I apologize if
one play and harp on it.
Great apology.
I apologize if you misunderstood.
If it came off.
I am so sorry you were wrong about me. I also post like 20 plays, so I'm not picking one and like harping on it. I post like a whole bunch, and most of them were good. But my question is, so they went to 1-on-1 Justin Jefferson balls a whole bunch, right? Like a ton of, there was the one touchdown. There was the halftime one that turned into an interception. Like they went to it a whole bunch. And my question is, at what point does that become too much? Like and I'm super conflicted because like 1-on-1 to Jefferson seems like it is always good, but there's got to be a limit somewhere, right? And so I would prefer like a spacing concept or something like that. No, yeah, you see single high, you see 1-on-1 with Justin Jefferson. Of course, Cousins is taking it, and that particular play is not about Kirk Cousins; it's about Kevin O'Connell.
I like that we brought on a big play receiver, and Luke's first instinct is to say, I don't know if you should always throw the 1-on-1 to your best receiver.
Right.
I'm asking.
Jefferson.
I'm not saying. I'm asking.
So
I'm like 50-50. I can totally hear you say, no, take it every time. And I'll go, okay.
Video for this. Here's a perfect video for this. Luke, I'm going to teach you something. 101, Justin Jefferson in the red zone, right? It's like sex with your wife. You can never have enough, and it is never the wrong option, ever.
Okay.
Like ever. I'm talking about 9
Cool. Question
a.m.,
answered.
9 p.m.,
Arif's dead.
noon. Kids are napping. Grandma just took the kids for ice cream. It's sex with your wife. Like you see Justin Jefferson 101. Hey, kids are asleep. Let's go, babe.
Put a ring on
Sex
it,
with
Luke.
the wife. Like you can never not throw the ball to Justin Jefferson 101 with any defensive back in this league. I am looking forward to the Jets, Sauce Gardner versus Justin Jefferson 101. Why? Because you're going to throw it to Justin Jefferson, and he's going to learn from some of it. I think this is what happened with Justin Jefferson against Benjamin St-Juste. I think Justin Jefferson was a little bit too relaxed. He didn't aggressively attack the ball. He didn't go up aggressively with two hands. It was almost like I'm good. I got this guy. Like this guy's a nobody. Who is Benjamin St-Juste? And he took for granted that this kid is about 6'2" with about a 6'6", 6'7" wingspan, and he just was real lackadaisical. I felt like versus the Justin Jefferson that gets angry, the Justin Jefferson that wants to go attack the ball at the high point. Like it felt like a little bit of like, it's Benjamin St-Juste. This is the Washington Commanders. I guarantee when it's Jets Sauce Gardner, he's not going to be lackadaisical. That's why you call that play, because if it's man coverage and KJ Osborne bracketed and you don't have TJ Hockenson backside, because we might get some TJ Hockenson backside now manned up, I'm going there. But KJ or Justin Jefferson one-on-one with a DB, hey, you never can get enough of that. Never.
That was the greatest
You'll
moment
figure
in
out
this
what that
podcast
analogy means
history.
when you're older.
I don't know where we go from there.
This is the second time on this show that Ron Johnson has disparaged my sex life.
Oh, that's right.
I mean,
He
you should
called-
stop.
yeah.
You should stop bringing up opportunities for that to happen, or get a better sex life. You know, one
Justin
of the two,
Jefferson
right?
fades?
Hey, whatever works. No judgment here.
Whatever gets you going, Arif.
Yeah. Ron, Stefon Diggs is facing
Yeah.
the Vikings for the first time, obviously since being traded. I think he's sitting on a huge performance. Just with the way, what I know about Diggs is he's going to fire himself up for this game. What are your thoughts on Diggs?
Yeah, when you look at the usage, him and Justin Jefferson are about the same. The big difference is the Bills kind of have dedicated other options. They try to get going early, like Gabe Davis and the Knox bit. They try to go across the middle to see if they can get those safeties up. Once those safeties are kind of dialed in, and like the over routes and the stuff that's going on, then you're going to see Stefon Diggs get involved. So the question is does Harrison Smith or Cam Bynum fall for that? Like, do they, if they're in quarters, do they fall for that, or are their antennas up with Stefon Diggs? I think he's going to have a game. Like, I don't think it's going to be a 250-yard or 200-yard game. I think it's going to be over 100 for sure. But I don't think it's going to be one of those games. And honestly, like some of these players playing against Stefon Diggs don't have the same like Viking Stefon Diggs care that it would have been if this was like Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes. Harrison Smith might be the only one in the backfield that actually played with Stefon Diggs in purple. So I think that's going to be the biggest kind of thought with this is these other, like Eric Kendricks, he knows what's coming, but I don't think he's like, okay, I got to go blow Stefon Diggs up. Like he's got to worry about the running backs. They just added the kid from the Colts, Himes. So there's a lot going on with this Bills offense. They also know if Josh Allen does play, they got to account for his legs. So I just know Stefon Diggs is probably, a little bit juiced up. But at the end of the day, I think the entire team is. You got Leslie Frazier. I think we're forgetting about that. Walking back into the building, defensive coordinator. He's going to want to dial up some blitzes and show everybody like, hey, I deserve a chance to be a head coach somewhere. And Ziggy Wilf, you're lost for not keeping me around. Giving me a chance to get it figured out eventually. But I think that's gonna be the key to this game. It's Stefon Diggs. He's gonna have a decent game, but I just think there's so many other stories. Like if Case Keenum plays, what does that look like? Like, do they force it to Diggs so much that it becomes like tip balls and interceptions? Do the refs let these guys play? Because Stefon Diggs is going to be jawing back and forth with Cam, or if it's Cam Dancer because he's in a boot. Who knows? It's now a Caleb Evans, and the Caleb Evans is long. Like he's a Benjamin St-Juste type of player. Like he's an eliminator because of his length. And so, and not say Cam Dancer's not long as well. He is too. And I think that's going to be the key to this is Stefon Diggs. I don't think this is a Stefon Diggs show. I think this is the Buffalo Bills show, and Kirk Cousins is going to have to stand up and show who he is, and that's not throwing it to KJ Osborne on the red zone. I know that, but I know Luke wants him to throw it to KJ Osborne in the red zone.
Goodness.
But
hits just keep coming.
But no, it's gonna be a good game, I think. But I don't think it's just gonna be a Stefon Diggs show. I'm more interested to see how the fans react. Like, does he get cheers? Does he get boos? What do they think? Because it's mixed. It's mixed emotions there because he did fight his way out. He has apologized since. He said he wasn't a great teammate when he wanted to leave. So yeah, who knows? Who knows what that's gonna look like?
Yeah, we'll see if the Vikings travel well enough to make an impact there in that crowd, because I don't think Buffalo's selling a lot of tickets for this game to Vikings fans. They're probably going to fill it up with Bills Mafia. Arif, I'll give you the last word here, or the last question for Ron before we get into our next segment. Go ahead.
Yeah, earlier I had mentioned that the biggest matchup to me might be how both pass protection units do. I think both pass rush units have been doing really well over the past couple of weeks, and I am just a little bit concerned. Ezra Cleveland, probably coming off of his worst game of the year, he's mostly been pretty good, but a lot of concern about Ed Ingram. Garrett Bradbury, I still kind of just don't trust it, right? And the Bills have had some issues along the offensive line too, outside of Mitch Morse. So it's been tough. How do you think that kind of can help define the game, and what will that enable kind of these offenses to do?
So just stick with the Vikings offensive line. That's really all I can like. The Bills, for me, it's so much going on with that line. If it is Josh Allen, like I said, he helps them out with the run. Like his ability to run forces defensive linemen and even blitzers to kind of play it safe. You can't pin your ears back and just go after Josh Allen because he will hurt you. And they design plays to look like it's a true pass, and it's a draw or it's a quarterback sweep. Like that's where I think their offensive line gets help from Josh Allen's legs. On the other side, when you look at Kirk Cousins, this offensive line. So one, the Vikings fans have traveled well so far all year. So we'll see. The weather here is actually nice in November. Normally fans are excited to leave here to go somewhere else in November, but it's like 70 degrees in Minnesota. So I don't know what's going on. But when you look at the Buffalo Bills crowd, that is what's going to dictate this offensive line. And I think Kirk Cousins. So I watched the clip of Peyton Manning getting into it with Jeff Saturday, and I remember those practices where we would have walkthroughs, for instance, and Peyton Manning. Jeff Saturday would sit on the ground as Peyton Manning was talking because he's like, this dude's going to sit here and try to change 50 different plays in one play. And so he would sit on the ground and just like take a knee. Like, all right, I'm going to take a knee until this guy is done explaining what he wants us to do. Boom. All right, I explained it. Jeff Saturday gets up, fake snap. They do the walkthrough. I think this is going to be that kind of game. Like, it's going to be Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is going to have to talk a ton to Ezra Cleveland, Garrett Bradbury, and Ed Ingram. Those three, because his tackles are pretty good, and also his tackles kind of know their job in the blocking. But those guards in the center, this is going to be one of those games. I don't know if you saw the clip where Jeff Saturday was MF and Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning was MF and Jeff Saturday. It's kind of hit the internet
great
now.
Clip. Fantastic clip.
Yeah.
But I don't see Kirk Cousins saying that way. But I have a feeling that it's going to come up where the offensive line's going to want to do something one way. Kirk Cousins going to want it a different way. And then the rubber's going to meet the road. And I hope, and this is where Garrett Bradbury can help himself out. I hope they're able to verbalize to Kirk Cousins what they need so that Kirk can help them get into the right protection. Because that's where, if they can get into the right protection, I say every time, it's impossible every single time. That's why this is a chess match between defense and offensive coordinator. But if they can get into the right protection at least 80 to 90% of the time, meaning not just a free runner with a pickup, like the running back's ready to scan, you're not getting pushed and this guy's letting the guy come free. If they can get that stuff figured out, like if they can guesstimate, like, oh, he's showing the white knuckles, he's coming forward. Oh, his hands are kind of up, he's going to twist because he doesn't have pressure on his hands. All that little stuff that we heard guys like John Randall McDaniel bring up in their battles with each other. By the way, we do have Randall McDaniel coming on the Ron Johnson show next week. But when you think about that conversation, yeah, and I'm excited to see what he has to say about this offensive line, mainly the guards, because that was his position. But when you look at this situation with the offensive line, they are going to have to let Kirk Cousins control a little bit, and Kirk is going to have to trust because they can't hear. And so they have to be buttoned up. Like, and if there's, I hate to say it, and we used to hate when Mike Zimmer didn't use timeouts. I hope that the timeout is not overused. But Kirk Cousins, one quote he said was, "The timeouts aren't mine to use." Now I feel like they are. So hopefully, if Kirk isn't happy with what he sees, he just calls a timeout and doesn't end up in some stupid like get it and then fall to the ground because nobody's blocking anybody. That's what this game's going to be about. It's going to be about Kirk manning up. Like, I know he can take his shirt off. I know he can put the chains on, but man up. And this is what I'm excited for too. If they win, I wonder what Kirk is going to do on the plane now. Cause like Black Panther comes out this weekend. So can they get him like a Black Panther head or something? He's T'Challa or something. Like he's going to be dressed up in the Black Panther outfit with the chains. Like, who knows?
Ron, this has a lot of opportunity to go sideways. I'm just that this could go wrong real fast.
I don't know how Kirk tops it. And Ron, I don't know how you top that podcast appearance that we just had. That was great.
It was incredible.
Follow him at 3 Ron Johnson, Ron Johnson Show, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and the Roundtables Friday. Thanks, Ron. Have a good one.
No, thank you. I'm going to break down some film this week, I guess, and be the anti-Luke. That's going to be my new film. anti Luke Braun film.
Coming
find a play we disagree on.
Got a budding rivalry here. I love it. Good stuff, Ron. That was great. It's time for our gambling picks. And a reminder, too, to check out Locked On Sports Today, which brings in experts locally to tell you what's going on behind the scenes all across the country. They call it Lost. Locked On Sports Today, available wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. We start with Luke Braun today, who is in second place in our contest. We're making one pick against the spread, one pick over-under. Minimum is 100, maximum a cool $1,000 this week. Luke Braun, you're first.
It's getting a little thin. I am astounded that I'm in second place. I don't think I've gotten one right in like 3 weeks.
We're all below $1,000, so being in second
struggling.
place is a little bit different. Yeah,
pretty mightily.
Yeah. No, that does not reflect well on me. Anyways, I guess I'll just keep going. I've got enough money to bet the blind for one more week, see if I can't dig out of this hole, and then I'll have to go super aggressive next week if I go 0-2 again. But I got one more chance here. Look, this podcast has done very poor betting on the Jaguars, so I'm going to bet against the Jaguars and take the Kansas City Chiefs minus 9.5 at home against Jacksonville, and I'll put $100 on it.
Is that minus 110?
Minus 112.
12, thank you. I think I'm just going to do the anti-Vike. I'm going to go with Bills minus 3.5. Possibility Josh Allen plays, and I think I still like him. So you can hate me for it, but also that this is kind of a reverse jinx situation. So, and maybe a bit of an emotional hedge. So I'm going to go Bills minus 3.5. Do you have the line? Anybody?
112.
Thank you.
The wrong way. That's wrong. Minus 108.
Minus 108.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go $190 on that. Luke Inman sent in his picks. Luke is going to go with Rams minus 1. Is that what it currently is?
Yes, at minus 113.
Okay. Rams minus 1 at minus 113. He puts 160 on it, and now Arif, you get 2 in a row.
All right, so I'll take the Chicago Bears minus 3 at minus 103 odds for $100 against the Detroit Lions. I really like how Justin Fields has been playing the last couple of weeks. For my over-under pick, I'm going to take the Broncos Titans over, get this, 36.5 points. It's the lowest over-under I think I have ever seen. Mind you, quarterback situations kind of screwed up, but 36.5 points? I think there's something there. I know that the Broncos defense is still playing at a high level, but they don't have Bradley Chubb. So That one is a wild one to me. So I'm just going to take the over.
Dollars and line.
$100 line is -110.
Okay. Back to Luke Inman it goes. He's going to go Giants Texans under 40.5. And once again, someone give me the line.
It's at 41
sorry,
now
what
at
was it?
-110.
So that would be
Yes, if I
good
look at
for Luke because he wants the under. So
yeah.
under 41. And he puts
-110.
160 on it. All right, my turn. When in doubt, take the Thursday night game and take the under. So who's playing tonight? I don't even know, and I don't even care.
Panthers,
legitimately
Falcons
ask.
in Carolina. It is 41.5 at -110.
All right, I'm taking it. I will, however, put the minimum on that.
You taking the over?
Finish us off.
Sorry, are you taking the over or the
under?
Okay.
Under.
Man, I wanted to just keep going on Panthers overs in an ill-advised belief in PJ Walker. So now you've got me reeling. Pittsburgh Steelers Saints. Nobody's taking that, right?
Nope.
I don't think so. No.
All right. That over/under is at 40. Kenny Pickett, Andy Dalton, offense is reeling, banged up. Sure, under 40 at -115, and I'll put $100 on
Jeez.
it.
How much?
$100.
-115.
$100.
Oh, sorry. Goodness.
The picks are in. And thanks to betonline.net for the lines. Let's wrap the show as we always do with our party fouls.
It's time to tell you who spilled their proverbial drink on the sofa. Get ready for this week's party foul.
It sounds like there was a legitimate party foul here because the Vikings were having a party on the plane, and apparently numerous players violated the no social media rule, which, hey, I love that it got out, but you gotta keep it in house if that's the rule. I think that's a party foul. Is it? I mean, if there's no trust,
Are you a cop?
Then who
yeah,
can
okay.
be trusted?
Party foul. Sam Ekstrom for making that a party foul.
That's an extremely referee take.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then, I love how the Vikings
your address
amplify
printed on the
it,
back of your jersey.
All right. I've been convinced. It's actually awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's still my party foul.
Well, speaking of referees, that means I get to do the party foul on the back judge that ran into Cam Bynum. Did that happen? I'm going to do it again.
Did that.
I'm so mad.
Yeah. I stole it. Remember?
Double party foul.
Like I jumped in out of order so I could take it. Last episode.
I have no recollection of that. But okay, I trust you.
Yeah, you do have a memory of the goldfish. I know that.
So before Arif finds out that Brett Favre also had another scandal this week, we're going to sign off. That's Arif Hasan.
I was going to reference the fact that there was no new Brett Favre news for my party foul, but we'll wait next week.
Yeah. There might be another scandal at that point.
Keep your hopes
for
up.
Arif Hasan, Pro Football Network, Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings, I'm Sam Ekstrom. We'll be on the roundtable tomorrow with Reggie Wilson, Ron Johnson, Luke Inman, and we will talk to you then. For now, it's the Minnesota Football Party.